Let's talk about what's going on in my home state of Florida.
Your home state of Florida is... I can't say it on daytime.
So let me tell you the new one, because there seems to be this
Here we go.
renewed anti-LGBTQ campaign of wanting to portray LGBTQ as if they were groomers and all this stuff. So the new one is now Governor DeSantis is suing a place called Our House, where I had my bridal shower and where I love Athena Dion and all of the drag queens there. And he is suing them because there was one brunch where there was one child, and there's video of that. And he thinks that's inappropriate, and he thinks that's worth, instead of passing property insurance in Florida, he thinks it's worth going after the drag queens.
Yeah.
So tell me, what are your thoughts?
You know, my thought is the reason the pushback that we're getting, not only from Florida, but all over the world, is because the change has already happened. That's what I'm trying to start talking about.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So we got to talk about the cackling hens on The View. And one of the cackling hens in particular that made a statement that I found to be interesting. Okay, it's a similar statement that we hear all the time from the woke revolutionaries about this country, which is that this country's terrible, it sucks, okay, and that I'm leaving. Okay, I'm leaving. But they never seem to actually leave, right? Even if, you know, them leaving would make the country a better place, right? They don't want to leave. Now, Anna Navarro on The View made a similar statement about Florida because, you know, Florida's supposed to be such a terrible place to live and to be, right? But she lives there, specifically in Miami. She lives in Miami, but she went on The View to talk about, again, how much she hates Florida. And living in Florida is so terrible, so miserable, while discussing a list of the happiest countries and places in the world. Take a look.
Sonny told me this morning I need to find my my happiness. She's sending me to Finland.
Master class. But she was upset at like 8:30. I was like, you need to go to Finland.
Well, maybe if you lived in Florida, you'd be upset 24 hours a day, too.
That's true. Time to move. That's true.
You know? But, I mean, I was noticing that the three top countries of happiness are Finland, Denmark, Iceland. Qué frío.
Qué frío.
I mean, there's got to be some sort of connection there, because the average temperature in Finland is 19 degrees.
Yeah, it was cold. It was cold.
In Miami, it's 74. So I was looking at this application process, and you have to send evidence, a video with evidence that you're secretly an inner Finn. I was thinking of applying after you suggested it, but I'm not sure I could pass as an inner Finn. I went online and tried to see, you know, Cuban restaurants in Finland. Pastelitos de guayaba in Finland.
No.
Best taco places in...
They've got good fish. They've got good fish.
Sounds like they're happy.
I'm telling you right now, pickled herring ain't gonna do it for me.
Yeah, so the reason why I found this segment to be interesting is because politics will make people go and say things that they actually really don't believe, right? Clearly, she's not miserable living in Florida because if she was to go to Finland, she would be looking up all the great things about Florida, right? Which apparently is the Latino food that she likes to eat so much. Maybe too much. Definitely too much, okay? She likes to eat the food a little bit too much, okay? Navarro, I don't know, man. She's getting up there, right? She's really blown up over the years. Again, I think she's liking too much of those Cuban sandwiches or whatever in Miami, okay? Yeah, so I don't think that she would be happy in Finland, okay? And I think she's literally just saying this as a way to throw shade at Ron DeSantis because, you know, the left-wing narrative about Florida is that it's supposed to be a terrible state, right? It is the worst state to be in, okay? Florida is where people go to die, okay? This is what they said during the pandemic, okay? Going to Florida was like a death sentence, even though you had people like AOC and Eric Swalwell and other Democrats like Don Lemon as well too vacation in Florida, right? They vacationed in Florida during the pandemic. That's exactly what they did, right? While going on TV and talking about how bad the state is supposed to be, right? When reality is that millions of people are moving to Florida, not just Florida, but other red states as well too, like Texas, Arizona, which, I mean, I guess is not really a red state. It's more so a purple state. But they're getting the hell out of these liberal hellholes like New York City, where people are actually leaving. Okay, there's a mass exodus in California, right? Again, it's funny how that works, how the actual reality in regards to migration patterns in this country is the exact opposite of what the View is trying to allude to, right? They're trying to allude to this idea that red states are terrible places to live. Nobody wants to live in these places because the GOP and Republicans are running it. When the reality is that that's where everybody wants to be, right? Everybody wants to be in Texas. Everybody wants to be in Florida. I mean, there's a lot of people moving to North Carolina too. People want to be basically where there's less Democrats, right? They want to be where it's less Democrats. Now, the problem is that when they move, they bring their liberal policies with them, right? Like, for example, look at Austin, Texas, right? Which, again, is getting a lot of people from California coming over to Texas, and then they get to Texas, they make cities liberal, again, like Austin, and then they vote blue at the state level as well, too, which makes Texas more of a blue state than it actually should be, which is a problem, right? But when you have a great governor like Ron DeSantis, it's not really that big of a problem in places like Florida, right? When he won in a landslide because he's governing with common sense, right? Governing with common sense, and freedom, right? Actually letting people live their lives during a pandemic, which again is why it is one of the most migrated states, or states where people are migrating to in the country, right? And Anna Navarro refuses to move, right? She refuses to move to some of these happier countries like Finland or Denmark or Sweden, which, by the way, it's pretty funny how we had this conversation about diversity, right? And how diversity, or forced diversity, that is, because there's a difference between voluntary diversity, which I think is good, and forced diversity, which I think is a problem, right? Places like Denmark, Sweden, and all these other places, Scandinavia, they are culturally homogeneous and racially homogeneous, right? They have low crime, okay? They don't have as many issues as we do here in the United States, especially when it comes to social issues, right? But again, the question is it because they are a homogeneous society, right? Which again would go against the diversity narrative, right? It's just funny how, again, the left never wants to talk about that when it comes to those societies, but they want to take all their socialist policies, right? So they want all the socialism, but they don't want the actual, other things that go along with what may be playing into the success of those countries. Which, again, by the way, in those countries, a majority of the population is white, right? While the left is actively trying to make the United States less white, right? It's just funny how that works. Again, I think that voluntary diversity, people coming together and saying, hey, we have two things in common. We may be from different places, but we have things in common. We can live together. We can cooperate. We have the same values. I think that is good, right? I think people who don't necessarily share all those things being forced to come together, I think, again, creates a lot of problems, right? And you're seeing it in these liberal cities and states where people, again, are doing a mass exodus from, right? Like Portland, Chicago, New York City. Okay, all these places that are run by Democrats, that are diversity centers, people are running away from those places, right? Because they're crime infested and they're not safe to live. And also on top of that, again, they're cold, right? They tend to be cold in the wintertime. Florida is warm to hot all year round. But again, my point is that if Anna Navarro really feels like Florida is such a terrible place, then why the hell are you still there? You're rich enough where you can live anywhere. Why don't you go move to New York and live with the cackling hens, right? All your buddies on The View, they live in New York. Why don't you go live in New York? Well, it's because she knows living in New York would mean she had to pay more taxes. It's going to be cold, right? Her life is going to be much worse, right? Living in New York than Florida. She knows that. But again, she has to play her part. She has to go out there and to say her propaganda and to pretend like living in Florida is so terrible because that's the left-wing narrative, as a way to try to take shots and to make Ron DeSantis look bad. It's really pathetic. It really is. So again, we have another example of some of these leftists, right? Which at this point, Anna Navarro might as well be a leftist, that claim they hate where they live. Oh, you hate Florida, you hate America, but you won't leave. You're just staying there and you're taking advantage of all the great things about the place that you live at, knowing that you're not really unhappy, but hey, complaining and victimization is the most valuable currency of 2023. So this is what they do, right? You got to push the narrative. But again, if you don't like Florida, right? You can either go back to Nicaragua, right? Cuba's 90 miles south, you know, or you can go stay with the other cackling hands in New York City. But I guarantee she's not going to do that, right? She's not going to do that. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.